Minority leader Alexander Ocansey is calling on the youth to take an active role in the fight against illegal mining. He noted that political leaders often fall back on rhetoric and blame shifting when addressing the issue, an approach that has hindered meaningful progress. Alexander Ocansey believes it's time for young people to take the lead and drive real change in tackling the menace.
As we dream together, let us also confront the dangers that threaten our future. None is more urgent than the menace of illegal mining, otherwise known as galamsey. This destructive practice is stealing your future. It is robbing farmers of fertile soil, poisoning the water of our children, and destroying the environment you and I must inherit.
Minister of Transport Joseph Nikpe has announced that the Tema-Mpakadan rail line will begin operations from October 1 after the coach was involved in an accident during the first test drive. A second test drive was completed yesterday. Minister of Transport Joseph Nikpe announced this when he took his turn at the government's accountability series at the presidency in Accra.
We have done test run on the Tema to Mpakadan rail line, and it ended yesterday. And so by 1st October, God willing, we will start the first operations from Tema to Mpakadan. We are finished with the test runs and everything is set for us to start operations from Tema to Mpakadan. So 1st October, maybe with our first trip, we will invite all of you to witness how that rollout will take place.
The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has reduced the policy rate by 350 basis points to 21.5% from 25%, marking one of the steepest cuts in recent years. Announcing the decision at the 126th press briefing in Accra, Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama said the move reflects optimism that inflation will continue to ease in the coming months.
Given these considerations, the committee, that is the MPC, by a majority decision, voted to lower the monetary policy rate by 350 basis points to 21.5%.
Well, there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on YouTube as well. We're streaming on 3 News on the YouTube as well. So many ways you can connect with us and be part of the conversation tonight. And coming up, this is one that has been developing by the hour over the last at least 6 to 7 hours that we've been monitoring this particular development. And this is because a former Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Tokono has filed an application, again, another one, for judicial review at the High Court, challenging the legality of her removal from office as a justice of the Supreme Court by President John Dramani Mahama. Now, this adds up to the many that we have counted. A number of these suits, prior to her removal, a number of the applications, we counted over 6 of them that were seeking to stop the process. Now she's being removed, says she's not going down without a fight. A number of the applications prior to her removal are still active. This is the fresh one coming on the plate, because the former Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Tokono has filed an application challenging her removal by President John Dramani Mahama, not as the Chief Justice, but this time as a Justice of the Supreme Court. She contends that the President's use of the warrant to remove her from the office of the Chief Justice cannot be extended to remove her as a Justice of the Supreme Court. Now, we've been monitoring how this has been developing, and in the motion which was filed through her counsel, Justice Tokono, is seeking multiple declarations, and we're going to get into that shortly. A number of reliefs that she's seeking as well, including the many multiple declarations as well that she's asking for in the grounds of this particular application that she has then filed. In fact, she's indicated a number of things, that the president acted outside the powers conferred by the 1992 Constitution when he issued a removal warrant on September 1, 2025, which stripped her of both the office of the Chief Justice and as the Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature. Now, this matter, on the same day, September 1, if you recall, the early afternoon of September 1, that was when the decision of her removal was communicated by that letter from the presidency, signed by Phyllis Kwatio-Fosu, that the president acted upon the recommendations of this 5-member committee. Before they would end that day, we got a copy of this warrant that she talks about. So these are the reliefs that the former Chief Justice is seeking in this fresh application, which, we understand, was filed today. Take a look. A declaration that the president is devoid of power to remove a justice of the Superior Court from office without recourse to the mandatory procedure set out in Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution. So the president cannot do that without reference to that mandatory procedure. And so what is this mandatory procedure that the former Chief Justice talks about? That she goes into some specifics in the Relief B. A declaration that jurisdiction to hear a petition for the removal of a Chief Justice of the Superior Court from office lies with a body properly constituted under Article 1464. She says that that power to remove the justice of a superior court from office lies with a body properly constituted under Article 1464 of the 1992 Constitution. So what does Article 1464 of the 1992 Constitution specifically state? And it's one that we'll get into shortly. Also, she's seeking a declaration that the warrant of removal executed by the president dated 1st September 2025 purporting to remove the applicant, that's Justice Tokono, hearing from both the office of the Chief Justice and the office of a Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature is unlawful, null, void, and of no effect. In fact, all of these, and there are a few more reliefs that she's seeking, all of this is reflected in the sentiments that she expressed about this entire process, even before her removal. And let's recall that press conference that she addressed and the sentiments that she expressed, because it's captured in the last two reliefs, which we'll get into shortly. But take a look at this.
Unfortunately, every step of the removal process being undertaken against me is being done in a manner that breaks every rule on how justice is delivered in our country. And this is why I find the need to draw the nation's attention to the serious violations of the Constitution and law in the process, and the danger it holds for the development of the nation's democracy. Unfortunately, every step of the removal process being undertaken against me is being done in a manner that breaks every rule on how justice is delivered in our country. And this is why I find the need to draw the nation's attention to the serious violations of the Constitution and law in the process, and the danger it holds for the development of the nation's democracy.
And this is the warrant that she wants quashed, essentially. No, go put that on the screen. This is the warrant that she references in the reliefs that she's asking for. This is the warrant that the president, in fact, wrote to Justice Gertrude Eraba Sabat Tokono, sealing the entire process of her removal. Now, therefore, know ye all men that I, John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, in pursuance of the said Article 1469, do hereby remove the Chief Justice, the said Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Tukono, from the office of Chief Justice and Justice of the Supreme Court. So it is the second part of the power of this warrant that the former Chief Justice is now challenging. Because this warrant removed her from office of the Chief Justice and Justice of the Supreme Court with effect from the date hereof, that's 1st September, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the presidential seal to be affixed at Accra this 1st of September 2025. That is what underlines this fresh application from the former Chief Justice. Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner, is joining us on Zoom right now for a conversation on this and two other reliefs that the former Chief Justice is asking for. But Martin Pebo, looking on the face of this particular warrant, and as I read that the president issued, which essentially removed the former Chief Justice from office of the Chief Justice and Justice of the Supreme Court, the fresh application now is questioning that power by the president to remove her from office as a Justice of the Superior Court. Now, you've seen the reliefs and the grounds right now. I want to first of all find out from you if this really, from where you sit, how this strikes you and whether it reflects exactly what the position of the law is.
Yeah, so Mr. Ocansey, my first comment is that when I saw, I wasn't seeing, I heard the information, okay, on a radio station. I was flabbergasted, yeah, extremely surprised that we could have this new kind of litigation. I'm extremely surprised because, you see, that's if we go straight into it. When you look at Article 146, right, there is only one provision that deals with grounds on which the Justice of the Superior Court may be removed from office, and that's Article 146 Clause 1. So my point is that there is no other place in Article 146 that you specifically find grounds for the removal of a Chief Justice. There is none. There is none. When you go to 146, you won't find that the what do you call it?
Yes.
There is any other provision that. So the point is this: if Chief Justice Tokoni is saying that she was not removed as a Supreme Court judge, then I would have expected that when she went in there, she should have challenged the grounds to say that the Constitution does not even make any grounds at all for the removal of a Chief Justice. If she had made that, that would have been more plausible, because when you look at it, of course, there's a Supreme Court decision that says that administrative functions, blah, blah, blah. But she's going by the wording. The reason I'm saying that she should have raised this argument is that in 146, you don't find a specific provision that says that the grounds for removal of a Chief Justice are incompetence, stated misbehavior, and the infirmity of mind and body. There's nothing like that. So that is what she should have raised first, because this new lawsuit sounds in a literal reading of the Constitution. But when you read the Supreme Court decisions, Ejechum, and then this recent one, her own case, you see Justice Tanko making the point that her removal as Chief Justice also affects her removal as a Supreme Court judge.
I see. But then she references in the reliefs, and counsel, if you permit me, and this specific one that she is asking for, that this declaration that the jurisdiction to hear a petition for the removal of a Chief Justice of the Superior Court from office lies with a body. She said there has to be a body essentially properly constituted under Article 1464 of the 1992 Constitution to actually take or hear or has that jurisdiction to hear the petition for the removal of the Justice of a Superior Court and not the Chief Justice. So if you look at 1464 that she references, it says where the Chief Justice decides that there is a prima facie case in the instance of the removal of a Superior Court judge, he or she, in this case she, shall set up a committee consisting of 3 justices of the Superior Courts or chairman of the regional tribunals or both, appointed by the Judicial Council, and 2 other persons who are not members of the Council of State, nor members of Parliament nor lawyers, and who shall be appointed by the Chief Justice on the advice of the Council of State. She wants this to apply. Counsel.
No. So the reason it won't apply once again is this. One, as I've already said, in her own case, when it came to the ruling on the injunction matter, okay, so that's the when her ladyship, Justice Gertrude Isabato, plaintiff applicant against Attorney General and the chairman of the committee. In that case, when you listen to the ruling of the Supreme Court, and that's Justice Tanko, let me read it. He says, I need hardly say that I arrived at the conclusion that this application must fail without relish, mindful of the fact that the applicant, the Honorable Lady Chief Justice of the Republic, is going through a process that may define her career on the bench as Chief Justice and as a judge, one way or the other. You see it? And then when you go to a J2, the same thing. They cannot be decoupled. No, no. And even so, with what the Chief Justice is actually seeking, then now maybe she wants a proper interpretation, so-called. You see, in law, to be fair to her, sometimes they can say that, oh, the matter that was before the court in a J2, Derry, and then this Justice Tokonu herself versus AG and Scott Wama, did not directly answer the question. There was no issue before the court that when you are removing CJ, are you also removing the CJ as a judge of the Supreme Court? Yes, there is that kind of argument that can be made, all right? Sure. But if you do that, that's why I said, then the first ground that should have been attacked is that because the Supreme Court has already given this interpretation in a number of those cases, that it affects her as a person both as CJ and as a judge of the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court decisions are not persuasive enough, then the argument, she can make the argument, the first argument she should have made is that in the Constitution, the grounds for the removal of a Chief Justice have not been provided. Do you get the point I'm making?
Yes, indeed.
There are no grounds for removal of a Chief Justice in the Constitution. What is there is the grounds, that's the basis on which you can remove, are for Superior Court justices. Because that's the only way that this new argument she's making will make sense. Then also, there's a point that then this High Court decision case actually requires an interpretation of the Constitution. And so if that is the case should go to the Supreme Court, not the High Court. Yes, because before the High Court can make a determination that it does not affect her as a justice of the Supreme Court, that will require detailed interpretation of the Constitution. And if that is so, then the High Court is not the proper forum. The case has to go to the Supreme Court. The High Court judge cannot do what Justice Tokonu is asking for. No, it can't. It cannot be done in the High Court because that's a complete interpretation of the Supreme Court, and the High Court is not clothed with jurisdiction to do what is being sought there.
I see. So you say her argument or her case would have had some more grounding if this particular relief was with respect to her removal as Chief Justice, because that is not clearly stated in black and white in Article 146.
Yes, it's not in there. It just says grounds for removal of Superior Court justices. And the Chief Justice is a justice of the Superior Court because she's a judge of the Supreme Court. Okay? Yes, so that's why it is court. But to say which part of the Constitution says if you want to remove the Chief Justice, these are the grounds, clearly stated, no. Rather, you'll find in the J-Chum where the Supreme Court was explaining Article 146 and then gave some flesh, not total, but some flesh to the meaning of stated misbehavior, blah, blah. It said the Chief Justice can be removed, this. But that's in the J-Chum. And I'm saying that it's the same J-Chum, and in this case, her own case against Attorney General and Justice Scott Puama, where they said if you are removing the Chief Justice, you are removing the Chief Justice as a Supreme Court judge. So what I'm saying is that if she has accepted that a Chief Justice can be removed, even though the grounds were not stated in the Constitution, but rather in a J-Chum, etc., then she has also accepted the same judgments that have said that when you are removing the Chief Justice, you are also removing the Chief Justice as a Supreme Court judge, because you can't approve it. In law, we say you take, okay, and then reject. No, there's inconsistency, because all of these statements are in the same cases. So why do you go into those Supreme Court decisions, then you pick and choose and leave others? That's going to be difficult.
I see.
Yeah, so it's either you reject all or you accept all. But to pick and choose, this cherry picking, no.
I see. So the potency of the warrant of her removal, you say, can actually apply in both cases as Chief Justice and also as a Superior Court judge?
Absolutely. Because the Supreme Court has said that when you are removing the person as a Chief Justice, you are also removing the person as a Supreme Court judge.
Because in the warrant, the third relief that she's seeking, that's one of the questions she's asking, in fact, a declaration of, that the warrant of a removal executed by the president purporting to remove her from both offices is really unlawful. She says it's null, void, and of no effect. Counsel.
Yes, so we'll still come back to the same point. The Supreme Court says that it affects both, not once, at least twice. Maybe after tonight, I'll check in Derry, the Justice Paul Derry case. I don't think that one. But in the J-Chum and in Justice Tokonu's own case, the Supreme Court says it affects both positions. So that's why I made the other point that then in that case, if she wants to throw out these statements, in other words, to say what in law we say obiter, because she said that was not the main question before the court, all right? It was collateral, or it was, yes, there was just some comments in passing. Then, in that case, if you said that was obiter, so how did you accept that a Chief Justice can be removed even though the Constitution does not prove the grounds, or the Constitution does not state the grounds? I find it difficult to reconcile this. Yeah.
We'll see how the coming days will look like on this matter. Counsel, I thank you. I appreciate you as always. Thank you for joining us. Asantehemaa is private legal practitioner there, and there are two more reliefs captured in this latest application by the former Chief Justice. She's actually seeking an order of certiorari to bring into the court for the purposes of being quashed. The emphasis on the warrant of a removal referred in the C to quash the same warrant as being in violation of the mandatory provisions regarding the removal of a Chief Justice, of a Justice of a Superior Court of Judicature from office. That is one that Martin Pebo has consistently referenced cases that she herself as well presided over, and how the outcome of those cases, in his view, also goes contrary to the position that has been taken now. We'll see how this case flows. But as I indicated, this is a stone that is really gathering dust as we go on. But this is one we'll keep an eye on here on Ghana Tonight. But coming up next, let's still stay on the matters of law, because Ghana's deportation agreement with the United States has now brought about a fresh wave of lawsuits, this time from the deportees themselves. We'll tell you about it. Stay with us here on Ghana Tonight. And this is information that we're getting fresh on the plate. And we've been watching how this has been developing over the period. 11 West African nationals have taken legal action against the government of Ghana. What's their crime, or our crime? Challenging their transfer from the United States under the controversial arrangement. Now, the applicants, who are Nigerians, Togolese, Gambians, and Malian nationals, say they were secretly removed from the United States detention centers earlier this month, despite having previously secured protection against deportation from American immigration courts. Now, they claim they only discovered later that Ghana was their unexpected destination. They didn't know about this. That's why they say it was a secret deportation. They didn't know that they were being brought to Ghana. But then again, what does the law say? Because it says since their arrival on September 6th, they say they have been kept in military facilities, denied proper access to family members, and held for more than 48 hours without any court order. The suits filed before Ghanaian courts include a habeas corpus action questioning the lawfulness of their detention, a human rights case alleging violations of their liberty and administrative justice, and an injunction seeking to stop any attempt to send them back to their countries of origin. Now, let's get a bit more into this, because this is one that our legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akablea, has been following quite closely as how this transpired right from the United States to what's happening here in Ghana. He's joining us right now. Joseph, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. What more do we know about this particular case and the challenge that these deportees are bringing up against the government of Ghana?
Well, the first update we can bring to our viewers is the fact that two of the cases that you made reference to are due to be heard in court tomorrow. The first being the habeas corpus application, which is simply challenging the basis for their imprisonment, asking that whoever is holding them shows up in court and explains why they are being detained, for the court to determine whether that detention should be allowed to remain or the court should issue other orders for their release. Then the second application is the one for the injunction that you also made reference to, which would also is supposed to be heard tomorrow, asking that the Republic of Ghana is restrained from having them removed from Ghana. We have seen and verified videos from persons who are close to these individuals, videos showing one person speaking on their behalf, in which they say that as at the 15th of September, that is just 2 days ago, they were still in the jurisdiction. You recall last week, the president had said that the first batch had been sent out of the country. What is not clear is whether this is another batch beyond the batch the president had referred to, because they say that media reports suggesting they arrived in Ghana and they had been sent out of Ghana are false and that they are still within their jurisdiction. The main point to make is that they have been granted some respite by the courts in the United States of America that prevented their removal from that country, and they were not therefore supposed to be moved from the United States in the first place, only to be told mid-flight that they were heading to Ghana. And they say that on arrival in Ghana, without any court order or anything, they are being kept beyond the mandatory requirements of 48 hours, or beyond that, you get a court order to extend that warrant. And so that is what they are saying, that as far as they are concerned, they believe their rights have been breached, for which reason they are seeking the intervention of our courts.
And they say they are being kept at military facilities.
Yes.
As we see from what you do know.
Yes, that's the claim they make. They say that they are being held in various military facilities and that there are intermittent access that is granted to family members and sometimes to the lawyers. So it's not access that they are satisfied with. And they believe that all those matters amount to a breach of their rights. And as far as they are concerned, they believe that the courts ought to intervene and order their release.
And Joseph, hold on a bit for me. Let's hear from the president exactly a week ago when he first spoke about this entire arrangement and these deportees coming into Ghana. Take a look. And we'll hear from him. And then Samuel Okujeto as well did give a bit more detail a couple of days ago during that accountability series. This is the president a week ago. Take a look.
It shows the tightening situation in our foreign relations, but I do think that we still enjoy good relations with the United States of America. We were approached by the U.S. to accept third-party nationals who were being removed from the U.S. And we agreed with them that West African nationals, were acceptable because all our fellow West Africans don't need a visa to come to our country. So if they decided to travel from US to Accra, they don't need a visa anyway. So if you're bringing our colleague West Africans back, that's okay. And so I think that agreement has been activated, and a first batch of 14 nationals came. Several of them were our Nigerian brothers. They opted to go back home. And so we put them on buses, to be able to go back home. One of them was a Gambian who is not as easy. You have to get him an air ticket to be able to facilitate his travel. So what we've done is contacted their embassy to let them know of his presence so that they can facilitate his return to Gambia. And so that's the issue with regards to deportations and arrivals. West Africa has the protocol of free movement. And so any West African is free to come to Ghana and be able to stay for 90 days. And so if they decide to bring them, we don't have a problem accepting them.
So that's the president there. So Joseph, he reiterates the point you made earlier that these West African nationals are due for their countries of origin under this arrangement with the United States. And that's what these deportees are resisting. They don't want to go to their countries?
Yes, in fact, they say that they should not have been removed from USA in the first place because they say that they had been granted a certain status. And in fact, there's an international report by the Reuters which makes reference to a matter that has been put before a federal court which raises questions about whether those individuals should be removed from the country. And so in this particular process that they filed in court, they attached some of those documents to show that they were pending matters and there's also a certain status that had been granted them, for which reason they should not have been moved. Again, we are learning from our government sources that about 40 other nationals are expected in the country in the coming week as well, 40 nationals. And questions are already being raised about the nature of the agreement that has been reached, particularly in line with the Supreme Court decision in the Gitmo 2, the case of Margaret Banfu and Henry Nana Boache versus the Attorney General, in which the court said that whatever form that agreement takes, Article 75 does not make any such distinction, and so such agreements ought to be taken to Parliament for ratification. But the government sources and the Minister for Foreign Affairs has stated quite publicly that as far as they are concerned, the agreement hasn't gotten to the stage that ought to go to Parliament for such an approval.
And so from what you do know, when is this case going to be heard?
It's to be heard tomorrow morning at the High Court here in Accra.
Tomorrow morning. And we'll see how things play out. And I know that this is one that you're keeping clear focus on, and we'll be updating our viewers on it. Our senior legal affairs correspondent there, Joseph Akable, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okujeto also gave some detail on the status of these deportees and what is going to happen, because they have to go to their countries. They say they don't want to go. But this is Samuel Okujeto 2 days ago. Take a look.
Ghana's action was guided solely by our moral responsibility, our legal obligations under the 1992 Constitution and ECOWAS protocols, our distinguished Pan-African track record, and historic and legendary leadership in championing the rights of all Africans. Let me emphasize that under this understanding with the United States, Ghana must first independently vet the background of those the U.S. intends to deport, to first satisfy ourselves that they do not pose any threat to the security of our country and that they cannot harm our citizens. We have put in place strict safeguards to ensure that convicted, hardened criminals cannot be brought into our country under this understanding. The Mahama administration will never compromise the safety and well-being of Ghanaians. This understanding with the U.S. has been thoroughly discussed by Cabinet and has also received the Attorney General's advice. By established convention, MOUs are not sent to Parliament for ratification. I have inherited hundreds of MOUs from the previous administration, which were not sent to Parliament for ratification. May I assure the nation that if this initial understanding is elevated into a full-blown agreement, we shall not hesitate to comply with Article 75 of the 1992 Constitution by proceeding to Parliament for ratification.
Samuel Okuyeto there, the Foreign Affairs Minister. This is Ghana Tonight. Tomorrow we are in court. We'll tell you how this matter plays out. But coming up next year on Ghana Tonight, the final funeral rites of Asantehemaa, that's the late, will be held tomorrow as she makes her final journey. Now the journey to Breman begins tomorrow. Market to be shut down in Kumasi in about 24 hours, in fact less than that from now. Most activities in Kumasi metropolis will come to a standstill to pave way for the necessary rituals which precede the burial of the Asantehemaa. Now, my colleague William Evansgum is going to be joining us shortly, but earlier in the day, this is what happened earlier in the day as part of day 3 of the morning. Take a look.
Clothed in black, a symbol of grief. The scary face of the executioners, Asantehemaa, is bereaved. The Queen Mother, the womb of the kingdom, has transitioned to Breman, the resting place of the royals, as high-profile dignitaries converge at the Mencha Palace to observe a week after her passing. The tone of tradition is amplified one more time. Bujawe, where Otumfo sat, represents a sacrilege. The Asantes believe it is the meeting point of the dead and the living. Oaths are sealed here. Curses are either evoked or overturned, but through blood sacrifice. This is where the Asantehemaa received the blackened stool from the Urempe, traditional authority. Bujawi means a dried, spilled blood. Soaked in grief, Santehemaa sits here in honor of his late elder sister, Nana Amakwendu Yadom III. Several dignitaries joined the Santehemaa. The Vice President, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, led a high-powered government delegation. They had signed the book of condolence before proceeding to greet Santehemaa. Former President Kufuor Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and former Vice President Dr. Bawumia and his wife were present at the Mencha Palace.
Oh, well, that was during the day. Let's bring you to the most part of this evening, prior to this moment here on Ghana Tonight. This is what the premises of Mencha looked like, and that reflects the mood of Asantehemaa right now. And William Evansgum is our Northern Bureau Chief. He's leading the team here at Media General to bring you everything you need to know about this final funeral rites of the late Asantehemaa. William, talk to us. We're seeing what's happening this evening right now. Talk to us. What's the mood like in Asantehemaa right now ahead of tomorrow?
Well, it's solemn. As we all know, we're just preparing for tomorrow. That is about 7 kilometers journey from the Mencha Palace through Bemu, that is Bantama, then to the Bremen, where the Royal Cemetery will receive another royal who has lived a life that is worth emulating, made a mark as far as the Asante Kingdom is concerned. And also, one thing that she will be remembered for is her commitment to maternal health, specifically ensuring that mothers breastfeed their children or babies. So it is one thing that Nana Yakonedu Yadom will be remembered for as he departs or transits from, the world of mortality to Bremen.
The Kumasi Township, or the Asantehemaa Township for that matter, I know that there's a lot that's going to be happening tomorrow. Everything will come to a standstill essentially. Walk us through what's going to be happening tomorrow with regards to activities in the area.
Well, let me first state that there has been a review, or maybe earlier directive from the Menshia Palace. There has been some level of a breakdown, so people will have a better understanding of how the process is going to look like and exactly what the Menshia Palace expects of Asantehemaa. So people who are supposed to provide essential services like food vendors, hospitals, banks, you understand, will still or allowed to open from 7 a.m. or the usual working time to 5 p.m. Of course, schools around Menshia Palace are not supposed to open, and we also understand that there has been an extension to all schools within the Greater Kumasi area. They're also not supposed to open, so it's a holiday for those schools, or if you like, a closure for those schools, and of course, other institutions. So there's going to be a normal life. Not too long ago, we also saw a statement from the Regional Coordinating Council, also directing that all government workers should also put on their uniform so that they can easily be identified. So it's not like more or less a total closure of institutions, just to pave way for this a sacred ritual, but call it a partial. And it is not to also say, and I'm saying this because Menshia has been making emphasis to trample on the rights of the people. This is tradition, and it's an old tradition that people in the Ashanti region respect. So it's not to say that somebody is trying to trample on the rights of anybody, but a tradition that is well respected and also embedded in our way of life, that is culture. So that is why we're going to see what we're going to see tomorrow. Now, all markets, I'm talking about major and satellite markets. Per tradition, Asantehemaa is the custodian of all markets. So by dint of respect, no market is opening as far as the Greater Kumasi is concerned. And that is why today we saw consumers, or if you like, customers, troop in to various market centers just to buy stuff in bulk and stockpile for tomorrow. So for instance, if you come to my house, my wife decided to buy stuff and then prepare something for the children so that they would even have the zeal of going out to buy anything. Let me also say that over the years, some unscrupulous people, and that has been the belief that some bad people have been taking advantage to commit murder. The cloak, or another guy that, well, it's a ritual period. Human sacrifices are made and all of that. And the more reason why Menshia has been very circumspect that, well, people should stay at home so that people will not perpetrate illegality or criminality, just to give Menshia a bad name. And the more reason why from 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. tomorrow, there's going to be a total shutdown so that that sacred journey can be embarked upon as Asantehemaa is transitioned from Mesha Palace to Bremen, where she will have a lasting place.
And I do appreciate this very important detail. William Evans Income, thank you so much for this. And it's going to be leading the team as we bring you everything you need to know tomorrow here across all media journal platforms. And that's why we're in black. My colleagues, all of us commiserate with Asantehemaa. But before we go for this quick break, the Ghana Premier League is home on TV3 every week. TV3 gives you 3 live GPL matches, the biggest games, the fiercest rivalries, and the brightest stars brought straight to your screens with world-class coverage. But that's not all. We set the stage with our GPL preview show, giving you the inside scoop and expert analysis. And when the final whistle blows, we keep you covered with our highlight and review program, so you never miss a goal, a save, or a talking point. For the fans who love to stay connected on the go, we have reels and updates on social media. This is more than just coverage. This is TV3 positioning the Ghana Premier League as premium sports product. So mark your calendars, gather your friends, and join us this weekend for another unforgettable round of Ghana Premier League football, only on TV3. We're back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us.
As an interior decorator, I aim for that beautiful elegance look. Flamingo paint has great hiding ability to cover and transform old walls easily with just one coat.
Impressive. For me, as a professional painter, I love Flamingo paints because with just small paints, I paint huge area, meaning more profit for me. Great value for money.
As an architect, Flamingo paint, with its well-researched and solid composition, guarantees durability for all my buildings.
Flamingo paint, superior hiding, superior coverage, superior durability. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
In my line of work, a confident smile is everything. Kale Charcoal Toothpaste keeps me on top of my game and ensures my smile is always radiant and bright.
With the tiring nature of my job, we spend several hours under the scorching sun. To keep our teeth white and our breath fresh all the time, we use none other than Kale Charcoal Toothpaste. Kale Charcoal Toothpaste. You're on a Kessie and in a kit one.
Samayo Kendini, a who be here, Semetra Sapapadia to a mammy man for Kale Charcoal's natural ingredients, and a bomb is so buying, a man is swing, and a sansu mama hoto so a will beg you.
Kale Charcoal Toothpaste. Choose Kale Charcoal Toothpaste for anti-cavity, whiter teeth, and fresher breath all day.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. And before we go, my colleague William Evansinkum referenced some reviewed measures by Menchia, and we have a release to that effect. Now, Menchia Palace hereby reminds all chiefs, traditional leaders, and members of the public attending the final burial rites of Nana Konadu Yadom III, Asantehemaa, on 18th September, as tomorrow, of the following directives. Live ammunition. The use of live ammunition is strictly prohibited. Musketry. Firing of muskets is allowed only when directed towards the sky, not at any person or the ground. Anyone found violating these rules will be arrested and subjected to appropriate legal action. All attendees are urged to strictly adhere to these regulations to ensure a safe and orderly burial ceremony. This is signed by the funeral committee. So that's what we do know. The funeral committee put out earlier today, and that's not the only one. We got a release as well from the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council about the number of directives. One, that all essential government workers must wear their official service uniforms and carry valid identification cards. Two, the use of official vehicles. As much as practicable, essential government workers should commute to and from their duty stations in official government vehicles because of the directives about the movement. And three, compliance with movement restrictions. All exempted institutions and essential workers are advised to cooperate fully with security personnel and other regulatory agencies enforcing the movement restrictions. The Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council talking about cooperation, and William Evansinkum and the team are going to be on the ground. We'll bring you everything you need to know. I want to say thank you so much for staying with us on Ghana Tonight. Tomorrow we'll sink our teeth into the position that the former EC chair talks about. We have a big conversation on that. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you so much for staying with us. Join us same time tomorrow. If I join the New Day team tomorrow, beginning 6 a.m. on Sunrise 3FM 92.7 as well. Same time, 6 a.m. I'm Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by